Brussels. We consider ourselves a European platform for research and information on mobility research and mainly public transportation. We have developed a methodology that is called SPIN-UP. SPIN-UP is an approach to public transport from passengers' point of view, and it's an abbreviation for perceived security in intermodal stations of urban public transport. We do audits and project definitions and research in different European countries. We have developed a toolbox for the design of major interchanges for UIC, the International Railway Union, and we recently also finished a benchmarking of major interchanges for UIC in Asia, and it covered India, Japan, People's Republic of China, and South Korea. Now, we know that within Europe, within the European Union, the annual cost of congestion, road accidents, amounts to 560 billion euros. That is a lot of money. And so that's an extra reason to promote public transport. Not only is private transport very costly, but also public transport within, if you look at the whole carbon emissions from mobility, public transport is only responsible for less than 2% of greenhouse gas emissions. Also, we know through research that families who live in a zone that is well connected to public transport have 15% of their household income more available. So it is important to reduce, to boost public transport from a congestion, from a stress, and from many points of view, from urban mobility, the economy, the environment, and eventually also from the quality of life of citizens. In public transport, stations are very important. Stations are the major interchanges. They are hubs, but we also like to call them something else. They are not only a hub or a nodal point, we like to call them a heterotopia. And heterotopia is a term that comes from sociology. It was first coined in 1967 by Michel Foucault, who is a French sociologist. And heterotopia means it is a place, it is a semi-public place that is and has to be accessible by everybody. But it is accessible and it is also managed by both explicit and implicit rules. The explicit rules, they say, well, you have to buy a ticket if you want to ride, and you cannot smoke, you cannot, things that are not allowed by the station management. The implicit rules are the rules that we have through education, through culture. For instance, if you go to travel to different countries, you will see that people behave in different, men and women behave differently because of their culture, because of their religious background, or others. A station is a city in the city. We have cities like Seoul, Tokyo, New York, Paris, Antwerp, Brussels, Amsterdam. Not all of these cities have the same importance because some cities are more complex, they have more functions than others. There is a hierarchy of cities. This is an idea that comes from human geography, and it was used by Saskia Sassen one of the first times. Likewise, as there is a hierarchy of cities, there is also a hierarchy of stations. And depending on the complexity of the station, depending on the number of connections, depending on the different modes that come together in a station, the station is more or less complex. Depending on that complexity, you will, as an operator or as an authority, you will have to engineer, program the station differently. So, the heterotopia. In the heterotopia, we have what we call, as designers, a front space and a back space. In the front space is the highly visible area zone within the station, and usually people in that zone behave as is wanted, as was conceived by the architects or the designers. Now, in the second zone, the backspace, you have a zone that, for instance, we have all witnessed people who at 8 o'clock in the morning on the platform have a telephone call and they tell their private lives in a public space. Yeah? This can cause serious irritation. Some people start to shout, some people start to tell things that other people do not want to hear. So this is ruse. And in the ruse zone, what this means to architects or designers is that it gives hints to them to insulate or to organize these zones differently. It is not, because it is not a behavior for which you can fine people. You cannot send people to prison if they tell their private lives on the telephone. It just creates a lot of irritation, and irritation for security people is a nightmare. Now, in the last zone, we have abuse. If you have, in the station, if you have passengers or visitors that destroy your premises, your equipment, then it is important to apply the rules. Because if you do not do that, you will chase the good clients of public transport. The next part of the concept of the spin-up methodology is the fact that as an operator, you are not only in charge of transporting people safely and securely from A to B, but you also have to provide certain services. Yeah? We call them as a provider of mobility and community services. And more, given the densification of space, given the rise of the value of space, operators are seduced to program retail in their stations. Yeah? But not every consumer, not every passenger is a consumer at every time. So it is also important to provide free services in the station. It is still a semi-public space. It is, and that speaks for itself, it is important to provide services in tune with passenger expectations and with the complexity of the connections. Also, to provide similar level of comfort to passengers of bus transport as passengers of high speed. Now, I know that the frequency of a high-speed train is not the same as the frequency of a bus line, so you will not have the same purchasing time. But still, if you, what we mean by this is that bus passengers also are entitled to decent benches and weather protection. The hierarchy of cities. In a top station, for instance, a station where you have all the different modes combined from high speed to trams or buses or metro, then of course you can provide, it's close to, in quality to an airport. Yeah. In an airport, for instance, in London Terminal 5, you have many flagship stores, you have, and at the same time you have very small snacks. Yeah. But in that sort of station, you can provide all the services that you can possibly think of and obtain revenue from it. Whereas if in basic stations where you only have 1 or 2 trains per day and 3 buses, it's not feasible, it's not economically viable to have all these services. But you need still to provide good minimum service, that is clean station, good basic information, and possibly an attendant in case of, to help passengers out in case of need. So where did do the research for this toolbox? We did that in Europe, in Madrid, Madrid Atocha, Paris Montparnasse, Milano Centrale, and Berlin Hauptbahnhof. And what we observed in Europe, that there is, amongst most people, that there is a key awareness of the need to double the market share of public transport by 2025. And the end result of this research is a toolbox, as I said, and it has 3 levels of intervention. So there is the concept first of the heterotopia, the mobility and community services provider, and the hierarchy of the cities. And then how do you apply this theory? Well, you do that in 3 levels of intervention. There is first of all the infrastructure, which requires an investment of 30 to 60 years. There is the equipment, which is a mid-term investment, and then there is also the look and feel of the station, the day-to-day management. This can also include not only retail, but for instance also art in the station, performances in the station, synergies with the neighborhood. In Asia, we researched for the benchmarking Beijing South, Shanghai Hongqiao Station, Seoul Central Station, Tokyo Central Station, as well as in India, Delhi Central Station and Mumbai Victoria Station. In Asia, we have clearly seen that the key awareness is safe and secure mass transit. I mean, if only to give you an example, Mumbai Central Victoria Station has 6,800,000 passengers per day. That is 2/3 of the population of the country where I come from. And again, we did a report, we provided it to UIC. It has, the report again has 3 layers of intervention with practical recommendations and examples of the best cases. The content of all this work is, of course, each time a general description of the city and the station, efficient examples of efficient land use and modal distribution, the infrastructure, intermodality, and connectivity. Now, intermodality is something, it is key to the success of public transport, key to the success of mobility in a city. If we have seen examples of metro networks in certain cities where we have been that are reputed to be standalone. Now, if you have a standalone system, you, by definition, you do not integrate mobility in your city and you exclude certain groups of your population, which cannot be the purpose of public transport. Also, another important point is signage and accessibility. We see in stations that people come from many different horizons, many cultural, intellectual, social horizons. And all these people, I mean, the word has been used earlier today, this afternoon, inclusiveness, yeah? Public transport has to be inclusive. And so in terms of signage, this is very important that we are aware of that people do not always speak English or the official language of the country where they are. And so signage has to be conceived also to include that. In Germany, Germany is another example for accessibility. We visited Berlin Hauptbahnhof, and in that city, in that station, we saw wheelchair patients travel by their own. I mean, if you live in a wheelchair and you can travel through the city on your own, that is really a sign of good service to these people as well. And it's in the end much more cheaper for society. Different services, security of course, cameras, CCTV, but also human surveillance. We have seen that here in Seoul, also a network of volunteers who help people out, who inform people of different ages, and then in the end, sustainability. In terms of sustainability, we believe that of the stations that we have visited, a lot needs to be done and can be done even with low budgets. And I would like to now to give you an example of a project that is developed by 5 public transport operators, of which the RATP in Paris, Bielefeld, Rotterdam, Manchester, and Brussels, the STIB in Brussels. Now, this project is called Ticket to Kyoto, and it's based on quick wins. Quick wins that are that reduce energy consumption, that have long-lasting effects, and give you a return on investment of 1 to 5 years, and can be implemented within 1 year. That there is another condition, that it presupposes that the operator can measure and or estimate the levels of energy reduction, and that the solution can be easily replicated. Now, these quick wins, they are based on good housekeeping, good economics. Good housekeeping means very practically that you meter and that you target and that you train your people. Now, it is a project that has been developed in order to save, to save on installation, to save on heat recovery, lighting control, and fleet renovation. Of course, the next aim is to reduce the CO2, the greenhouse gas emission of buildings, property rationalization, and changes in the procurement policy. What we have seen is that there is also some behavioral changes in the staff, and that they come up themselves with initiatives and suggestions so that policy and the process can be reviewed. We have seen this earlier today. If we do not do anything, if it is business as usual, then of course the energy needs will be increasing by 20 to 30%. But we can, with very simple measures, reduce this. Now, the Kyoto objectives are not always the political objectives, and so that is, in many cases, it is a dilemma. Now, here is the project in Brussels. In Brussels, the STIB has a number of depots, bus depots, tram depots, where they store, where they park their cars, their coaches during the night, and where they keep them for maintenance purposes. What this has shown is through metering, through just metering monthly consumption of energy, that in several of these depots, the economy of the kilowatts has been enormous, and it has led to an annual saving of close to 75,000 euros. Now, this is only the work that they have been doing in three major depots of the city. I mean, and it is very simple. It is switch off the light when there is nobody in the hall. Don't consider that the source of energy, it speaks for itself or comes in naturally. So it is important to train the staff and to create a better awareness regarding the environmental impact of their activities. Also to promote good practices, and of course this has been done with the backing of the management of the STIB. There has been a clear involvement and a clear support of the people, by the management of the people in the field. The precondition was that, of course, that there was a good energy accounting system, that the system would function without significant dysfunctions, and that there would be made a benchmark of energy consumption and comparison with similar buildings in kilowatt hours per square meters. The actual amount saved in CO2 was 484 tons a year, and the actual amount of money saved in the end was close to 80,000 euros a year. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for this very comprehensive presentation. What really caught my attention was the notion of a station being a city in a city. Usually the viewpoint is a station is a piece of fine infrastructure, of work of engineers, and I like the way you presented it as a city within a city with all the characteristics of what we want from a city. Be inclusive, be attractive. Thank you. let's move on to the next presentation by Christopher Collier.